Welcome to the Backlash at Backlash.com. My name is Rod Van Mechelen on the road, and in this video I'm going to read from my 1992 article, Women, the Great Communicators. The footnoted article is linked below. Words are not like chewing gum, to be molded, masticated, squished, and spit out. Imprecision, loose definitions, leads not to truth, but to imprecise and loose thinking. 1982, Bellevue, Washington. Women are great listeners. We know this because they say so, repeatedly. What's more, feminists assert that, quote, men expect to be listened to, close quote. We know this because feminists tell us this, that from earliest childhood, women condition men to expect them to be ready to give an attentive ear whenever they want to because, quote, women listen attentively and do not interrupt with challenges, sidetracks, or matching information, close quote. Deborah Tannen, you just don't understand. What we have here is a failure to communicate. The common experience of men paint a different picture. Quote, one of the biggest complaints men have about us is that women don't know how to listen, close quote. Barbara DeAngelis, Secrets About Men Every Woman Should Know. By the way, if you want to know where John Gray got most, if not all, of his ideas for Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Barbara DeAngelis is his ex-wife, and a lot of what's in his Mars and Venus book was previously published in her Secrets book. Continuing, it's not that women are to blame, they're saying the same thing about men. So there must be more going on here than simply not listening. Maybe it's because a common language separates us. Sexual oasis versus sexual desert. Shared experiences provide the basis for intimacy. Most women know this, but feminists ignore the kind of intimacy men often share, expecting that we should duplicate what women do to experience intimacy in romantic relationships. This makes no sense. Should we demand that women duplicate the basis of male intimacy so they can understand men? Where a single word can have several meanings, common experiences are often essential to clear communication between individuals who don't really know what those words mean. Most women share enough in common to make such communication possible. Even so, they have just as many problems communicating with other women as they do with men. If communication between women is difficult, then how can there be communication between individuals whose backgrounds are as different as an oasis and the desert that surrounds it? Most women grow up in a sexual oasis, where sexual opportunities abound. But most men grow up in a sexual desert, where sex seems in short supply. The problems unique to each seem trivial to inhabitants of the other, but this does not diminish how much our perceptions and speech differ. With backgrounds so different, knowing the precise definitions of words is necessary to successfully communicate. Otherwise, where ignorance reigns and background experiences are very different, misunderstanding is inevitable. This is the general situation that exists between women and men today. Quote, my research suggests that men and women may speak different languages that they assume are the same, using similar words to encode disparate experiences of self and social relationships. Because these languages share an overlapping moral vocabulary, they contain a propensity for systematic mistranslation, creating misunderstandings which impede communication and limit the potential for cooperation and care in relationships, close quote. That was from Carol Gilligan in a different voice. For good communication to occur between women and men, we need to speak the same language. This should be obvious. What is not obvious is why feminists prefer to blame the problem on men rather than to confront the root causes directly and honestly. Note, in 1992, I was still trying to treat the feminist hate movement with a degree of civility. It was only a year or two later that I started to come right out and explain that they were doing these things on purpose to promote hatred against men. Continuing, separated by a common language. Men often respond well to communication that is direct, honest, and to the point. But many women seem indirect. They will, for example, express their opinions as questions. For example, don't you think she's showing too much cleavage? Interpretation, look at that little expletive deleted, the shameless hussy. Why do they do this? Why don't they just come right out and say what they mean? According to Deborah Tannen, quote, conversations are negotiations for closeness in which people try to seek and give confirmation and support, and to reach consensus, close quote. Among themselves, women perceive questions as being a deferential and undemanding way to let the other person know what they're thinking and to give the opportunity to agree or disagree without losing face. Quote, the girls mitigated the conflict and preserved harmony by compromise and evasion, close quote. Deborah Tannen, you just don't understand. But men view evasion as a sign of dishonesty and often experience a question as a demand for information or a solution to a problem. Hence, when a man expresses an opinion such as, quote, I think green paint would be perfect for this wall, if his wife responds by asking, quote, don't you think brown paint would be nice, close quote, the first thing this tells him is she wasn't listening. By the very nature of her question, however, it demands a reassessment of data to which he may respond irritably. Such differences in communication styles sometimes lead to misunderstandings with horrible consequences, like acquaintance rape, or date rape as it's called these days. Thus, it's imperative that women and men learn how to communicate across the gender gap. Sidebar here, of course, these days we know that feminists don't want to mitigate things like acquaintance rape. And matter of fact, they want to blow the whole problem up, make it seem like it's far worse than it really is. So, of course, we know that feminists don't want to fix communication between women and men. They want to make it worse. Converging communication. Deborah Tannen distinguishes between two modes of conversation, report talk and rapport talk. Report talk is the mode common to men, and its primary purpose is to communicate information. Rapport talk is the mode common to women, with their focus primarily on the interaction itself. Neither style is superior to the other. Both serve equally valuable purposes. Each has its own strengths and weaknesses. Report talk is perfectly suited to the goal of getting things done. In the world of farming, space exploration, and bridge building, communicating feelings and intuitions just won't do. But rapport talk is essential to all we live for. In the world of intimacy and relationships, lecturing with decimals and equations doesn't work. But understanding and allowing for differences in communication style is useless if one group speaks Latin and the other speaks Martian. Thus, it's essential to begin by speaking the same language. That means going back to square one, picking up a dictionary, and learning precisely what all of our words mean. 2015, Olympia, Washington. Feminists are diametrically opposed to the idea of nailing down common definitions to words, as to do so exposes them to logic, which they hate. Since the 1970s, second wave feminists have repudiated logic as a weapon of the evil patriarchal hegemony to keep women oppressed. This is why you will find feminist literature littered with made-up words that convey idiotic meanings that allow them to wrap themselves in a shroud of pseudoscientific mumbo-jumbo that they use to keep the rest of us dazed and confused, when in reality we should be laughing at them for the hate-mongering imbeciles they are. That's all for now. Check out the other videos, subscribe to the channel. For the Backlash at backlash.com, my name is Rod Van Mecklin.